You are? Wonderful. So it looks like you've been going to temple somewhere. Wonderful. Shri Shri Radha Gopinath ki jai. You're here, what are you studying?
I'm doing my master's in electrical and computer engineering.
Wonderful. And your friends are also students at PSU? And you're also doing electrical engineering and computer science. Wow. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jaisacinandana. This is the home of residents of Shri Shri Jaisacinandana Dev. So it's nice to see Gopal and Ram back. 1 week? Nice. Thank you for coming. Hare Krishna. So come sit this way so I can see you guys too. So we're going to be having this on the 30th is Shri Ram Navami, the appearance day of Shri Lord Ram. And so we'll have that day the focus will be on Hari Katha and chanting the holy name. And then on April 2nd we'll have what's our cultural program, where there'll be dramas and dance and all that, enlivening. But also Hari Katha is also very important. To understand Leela, one has to understand Tattva. To understand the appearance of the Lord and His pastimes, one has to have scriptural basis for that understanding. Okay? So, I'm not, most of my readings are in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, the books that Srila Prabhupada translated. I've read Sri Ramayana back in 1995, 1996, but haven't been absorbed in studying it. So everything I'm going to say today comes from senior Vaishnavas, and I pray to them for their blessings so that I can speak on something that's beyond me. So, vancha kalpatrubhyascha kripo sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavyo namo namah. Om agyantimirandasya jananjana shlakaya chakshurunnetam yena tasmai shri guruve namaha. Namom Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namne. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Vrishay Shunyavadi Pashataya Deshatarane. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Vasadi Gaur Bhaktinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I have a sense that most of you have read Ramayana or heard Ramayana before, yes? Has anybody here not seen, read, or heard anything from the Ramayana? No. Maybe you guys should be here speaking instead of me. So there's so many parts of Ramayana that are very inspirational and instructive for all of us. Have you seen any portion of the Ramayana? You've looked at it yourself? A little bit? You've heard it. Okay. So Ramayana is the pastime of Sri Ramchandraji and his wonderful associates. There's a very nice website from IIT Kanpur on Ramayana where you can see the word-by-word translations of Ramayana, and also, at least for Balkanda, you can hear the recitation. So I've chosen to speak on a portion of the Ramayana that talks about a very famous personality. Any famous personalities that you know from Ramayana? Shri Ram, of course. Hanumanji. So, you look nice. You guys look very Vaishnava. Thank you for dressing. No jeans, no track pants. Dhoti kurta look nice. So it'll be about Sri Ramchandraji and about the obstacles that he overcomes. So, has anybody in this room not encountered obstacles in their life? No, everybody has encountered some obstacles, right? So, as sadhakas or devotees that are practicing, we know that the road from where we start to where we end up is paved with some, challenges, right? Everybody knows that. Even in the material world, that's the case. And more so, we shouldn't have a misconception that in the path of bhakti, it'll be without challenges. Why? Why will there be challenges in the path of bhakti, in devotion? Because we live in the material world. And the material world pulls us down, right? And we're conditioned by the gunas. Yes, this is a famous painting from the museum in Delhi of Shri Hanuman jumping off Mount Mahendra. So we have residual tendencies from our past lives called the gunas, or modes of nature, is how Srila Prabhupada translates it. Hare Krishna. So, as a result, we're subjected to some of the material miseries. Miseries due to our own body and our own mind, miseries inflicted by other living beings, and miseries due to nature itself. The material, like just this weekend there was a big tornado and a lot of people, passed away. And then one has to deal with one's own conditioning and one's own, tendencies. We all have that. So what makes the process smoother for us is not the absence, as devotees we need to understand what makes the process smoother for us is not the absence of difficulties, but rather the internal strength to meet the difficulty. Because in process of bhakti, one is trying to be dependent on Bhagwan, Lord's grace. Please come sit here, that way I can see you. It's easier to speak when you can see devotees. Devotees give strength. And so the process of bhakti, we're trying to be dependent upon Bhagwan and His grace. And that is what ultimately helps us overcome challenges and obstacles. So throughout our scriptures, we see very elevated and pure souls also encounter difficult situations. Can anybody think of such situations or such individuals that have encountered difficulty, even though they're very elevated devotees? Yes? Don't be afraid. Say that. The Pandavas, Arjun, right? Prahlad. Who else? Dhruv Maharaj. Who else? Bharat Maharaj. Today in Bhagavatam we're hearing nice lecture about Prakshit Maharaj, right? So, and in Ram Leela, Bharat Maharaj, Lakshmanji, Hanumanji, Sita Devi, even Lord Ram himself seemingly. So they're not free of difficulties, right? So why should we expect our life is going to be, different than that, right? So because I was meditating on this because of Ram Leela, and in gratitude to having Valmiki speak Ram Leela, I'd like to speak about the flight of Hanuman over the ocean to Lanka. So as devotees, this is relevant to us because Hanumanji is flying. How many yojanas did he cover? 100 yojanas. For those of you that are into science, there are some interesting articles I read about how everybody thinks, Sri Lanka is the Lanka of that time, but some geologists are saying no, that actually if you project back to that yuga, there was another island that more appropriately was the residence of Ravan. But regardless, we're not here to debate science. So the idea is that he was flying and traveling 100 yojanas, and how many steps did he take? One jump. One jump for 100 yojanas. From Mount Mahindra to Lanka. And what was his purpose? To find out about the whereabouts of Sita Devi. So he's flying over an ocean, and the ocean represents the ocean of material existence, according to the Acharyas. So Lord Hanuman faced obstacles in his service to Lord Ram and Sita Devi as well. And by facing those obstacles, he's showing us how to face challenges in our lives. And something very important as practicing devotees to understand is sometimes obstacles or challenges come as something that's favorable. Right, Ram? Right, Gopal? I was one time hearing you ask His Holiness Rampath Swami how to remain humble in seeming success, right? So sometimes challenges come as if they're favorable. And other times they come as unfavorable, of course. So we need to have a spiritual vision to determine whether an obstacle is actually favorable or unfavorable. Because from a material point of view, a detriment can be an obstacle. But what we learn from Shastra is a seemingly beneficial situation can also be an obstacle. So we learned this in the pastime of Hanumanji flying over the ocean. So Ramayana is 24,000 verses approximately. And it's divided into 7 chapters called khandas. Right? There's the Balkhanda, the Yodhya Khanda, Ranya Khanda, Kishkinda Khanda, and Sundar Khanda, and Yudhya Khanda, and Uttarakhanda. And altogether, 24,000 verses divided into 500 chapters. The chapters are called sargas. So this particular pastime is narrated in the very first chapter of Sundarkand. So I will describe it. If you read Ramayana, you will see it's very poetic and filled with metaphors and symbolisms that are just out of this world. They make you just automatically feel de-stressed and happy. So having made his mind to leap over the ocean for the cause of Ram, Hanuman grew in size. And the Ramayana says he was growing in size like a mountain while his colleagues, the Vanaras, the monkeys, were watching. And he pressed on the mountain with his feet and hands, kind of like you've seen in the Olympics where somebody's trying to make a long jump, right? Or they're getting ready for the 100-yard dash. They're focusing and putting their full energy. You can imagine what Hanumanji is doing. So he pushed down on the mountain with his feet and hands. I'm basically reading from the Ramayana, but I'm translating it somewhat. Hare Krishna. So he pushed down on the mountain with his feet and hands in an attempt to cross the ocean. The mountain was starting to shake, which caused flowers to come down from the tops of the trees. And then because of the tremendous force that Hanumanji was putting, kind of like Nrsingadev, when you read about Nrsingadev pastime, it describes in Bhagavatam that Nrsingadev became so angry that his feet were pushing down the ground and his hair was pushing up the clouds and the planets. So in this situation, Hanumanji was putting tremendous pressure on the mountain. And Ramayana describes that because of that, streams of gold and silver started pouring out of the mountain. And the sadhus and the saintly personalities watched from the sky, and they said, for the sake of Ram and for the Vanaras, Hanuman wants to reach the other shore of the ocean. which is difficult and impossible almost to achieve. But Ramayana says Hanuman put his arms down, and his arms look like clubs of iron, metal, firmly on the mountain, and he crouched his waist and contracted his feet. His heads and shoulder kind of came together in muscular tension, and he summoned his energy and his vigor. And in that position, he turned his head, and his ears shrank, and he said to the Vanaras that, I will make a truthful promise that just like an arrow shot from the bow of Raghav is who? Shriram. Just like an arrow released by the bow of Raghav flies straight, I will proceed with the speed of the wind to reach Lanka as it's ruled by Ravana. And that's my first promise. And my second promise is if I'm not able to find the daughter of Janak Maharaj, who is Sita Devi at Lanka, then I will go to heaven, the Swarga, the abode of the Devatas, the gods, with the same speed. Promise 3 is if I don't find Sita and Swarga in heaven, I will bring that king of demons, Ravana, and bring him here. So he made these promises. And once, the full intelligence, focus, power came into his body, he burst off of Mount Mandara. And that's what you're seeing there. And the Ramayana says, because he felt liberated without any exertion, almost like Garuda, the carrier of Lord Vishnu. When he took off the mountains, trees on the mountains and their branches flew with him. You see the trees bending towards it. And Hanumanji, Ramayana says, became covered with buds of flowers. So he looked like a flying mountain with fireflies. You can just close your eyes and try to meditate on this. And the trees shed their blossoms. See those blossoms coming off of Hanumanji? Not the hand sign, but the blossoms. And dropped onto the sea. And the Ramayana says, they were just like close relatives saying farewell. And flowers fell into the ocean, the Ramayana says, so the ocean looked like the sky at nighttime with stars shining in it. And Hanumanji, as he was just with that one powerful jump flying through the sky, his eyes blazed like 2 burning fires on a mountain because his body was like size of a mountain. And his eyes were flashing like lightning. And the wind was passing under his arms, sounding like thundering clouds. And whichever part of the ocean that he flew over appeared like as if it had whirlpools and eddies and foams by the speed of his motion and his thighs. He was pulling the clouds along with him like the wind god. And flocks of birds were following along in his path because of his force. And as you can see there, the Devi Devtas started raining flowers on Hanumanji and praised his vigor and his majesty. And the Ramayana says the sun, because the sun understood the purpose of Hanuman, that the sun withheld the heat. And the wind god, who's none other than his father, served him by blowing cool air along his process because the sun god knew what was his purpose. So at that time, something very interesting happened. The god of the ocean, whose name was Varuna, saw Hanumanji, and he wished for the well-being of the Lord Ram comes in a solar dynasty called Ikshvaku. And the god of the ocean, Jaisacinandana ki jai. And the god of the ocean remembered that, hey, my ancestor, Sagar, was in the same dynasty. So the sea god said, I should not do anything to make Hanuman suffer, since he's helping the Ikshvaku race. I have to make arrangements for his rest, and then later he can journey comfortably. I'm just describing the pastime, then I'm going to try to describe the lessons, okay? So the sea god, Varuna, spoke to a golden mountain called Menak. And Menak was hidden in the sea, and we'll get to why. And he said, oh, greatest of mountains, you are kept here by Indra Dev, the head of all the Devi Devtas in heaven. And you're kept here as a barrier to keeping the demons who reside in the lower world from coming out. You're kind of blocking the tunnel. So Varuna is saying this to Menak, and he said, but you have the capacity to grow in size. And I therefore request you to grow. This Hanuman is flying over you to fulfill Ram's mission. Rise up from the water, let him rest upon you, so this noble personality can rest. He's our guest and he's worthy of our worship. Please note what he said. Then Menak was golden in color as he started rising. And he was covered with trees and bushes, and he at once started rising out of the water. And Ramayana says he was glittering like 1,000 suns with shining golden peak. Hanumanji was fixed. I have to get to Lanka. And Hanumanji saw Menak, the mountain, rising up. All of a sudden, and Hanumanji saw it as an obstacle on his flight. Because Hanumanji did not know what the intent of Menak, the mountain, was, he pushed it down instantly with his chest. And Ramayana says, just like the wind pushes the cloud. And what did Menak do? Menak roared with joy, is what Ramayana says. Why do you think Menak roared with joy? Because a great personality, Hanumanji, touched him. Then Menak assumed a human-like form, and standing on the top of himself, the mountain, and with great happiness said to Hanumanji, O best of the Varnas, you have achieved a formidable deed. Land on my peak and comfortably rest for some time. Then you can resume your journey. The god of the ocean, Varuna, desires to honor you because of your service to Ram. And I was prompted by Varuna for your sake, since he has such great regard for you. Are you guys following? Oh, great Vanara, please rest a while, continue your journey. In fact, now he's going to reveal something. In fact, you're also worthy of worship from me, and I will tell you the reason. In Ramayana says in Krita Yoga is Satya Yoga. Ramchandraji appeared in Treta Yoga. So Menak says to to Hanumanji in Satya Yuga. So Menak is standing golden on top of a golden peak, speaking. Mountains had wings. They were endowed with wings. And they used to move speedily in all directions, like Govardhan, right? Like Garuda and Vayu. But the sadhus and creatures started falling out of the mountains. Sadhus live in caves. And upset by this, they complained to Indradev. He's, after all, the manager of the material world. And so what did Indradev do? He cut off the wings from the mountains with his thunderbolt. And Indra chased me. This is what Menak is saying. Indra chased me, and your father, Vayu, took mercy upon me and threw me down into the salty ocean, and thereby hid me from Indra. And so my wings were protected. Therefore, I have a great debt of gratitude to Vayu, your father. And so I also honor you, just like Varuna is doing. So, O noble Hanumanji, please oblige us. Accept our offering given with love and be relieved of your fatigue. Your presence itself is welcoming to me. So Hanuman, pleased with the words of Menak, said, I am very pleased at your hospitality. Remove your unhappiness. My commitment is urging me to keep up. The day set for accomplishment of my task is drawing to close, right? Because at nighttime, the demons take over. My vow is made. I will not halt in the middle of my work. Having said this, Ramayana says, the mighty Hanuman gently touched the mountain with his hands before ascending further into the sky with a smile on his face. In return, the god of the ocean, Varuna, and Menak honored Hanuman and gave him blessings. And then Hanuman started flying off in his way. And because of this incident, Ramayana describes in some detail, I'll just summarize, Indradev became pleased with Menak. Instead of being angry and Menak hiding, Indradev became pleased because of Menak's offering of service to Hanumanji. And so Menak, at this point, didn't have to hide under the ocean. He could appear. Thus, Indra's desire to Menak was removed, and his desire to cut off the wings of Menak were also absolved. So this is the first obstacle that Hanumanji faced. Very nice, huh? So there are many, many lessons here. And from my readings and hearing of very elevated devotees. In particular, our very dear friend, Nityananda Pran Prabhu. A lot of wonderful realizations can come from this. First realization, that the god of the ocean, Varuna, had a lot of gratitude in his heart towards Lord Ram. Why? Because someone in Lord Ram's family lineage did service for him. Sagar carved the planet and allowed for ocean to flow there. In the distant past, long ago. And Varuna realized that I will be dissatisfied in my heart if an opportunity to serve Hanuman goes by and I don't do something. So this is a mode of goodness. This obstacle that came in Hanuman's path was a mode of goodness obstacle. Some people who do not have such piety or goodness in their heart or gratitude, they would say, no matter, that's okay, gone. Yeah, that person did something for me, but I don't have the time to, reciprocate here. Thus, it would not matter to them that they missed an opportunity to reciprocate with a soul that did them some good way in the past. But here's the lesson. A devotee realizes that opportunities for reciprocation exist. When a good deed is repaid by another good deed. And more importantly, when a bad deed that's offered to us is repaid by a good deed. So that's lesson one, that if we have gratitude in our heart to those that have given us bhakti, then we should take opportunity to reciprocate with them when we get that opportunity. And if somebody's blocking our path, we should understand they're the messenger. They're not the source of the message. That let me return this seemingly obstacle that somebody's created with a good deed. So that's lesson one. So the sea god says to Menak, you are a noble soul. Please help him. Look at Hanuman and see what service he's doing for Shri Ram and Shri Sita Devi. So what is happening here? Varuna is not able to serve Shri Ram, but he's serving the servant of Shri Ram, right? And that is very wonderful. That's a principle that all devotees should live by. Serve the servant of the servant, right? Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself says that. Gopi Bharata Kamala Das, Das, and Das. And this mood is present throughout the Ramayana, being a servant of the servant, right? So many examples. So many examples. So rendering service to Lord through those that hold him dear in their heart. So what's the lesson here? That one should remember that one's position is a product of the grace of other beings, other people. Where we are is due to the grace of others. No one in the world can deny that, no matter where they're at. So the richness of a person's heart is to find meaning in how everyone's gesture has somehow done us good. Even those who apparently did us no good. So Varuna and Menak remembered service that was done for them long ago, right? And there they've cut off the wings of the mountains long, long ago. Sagar dug the canal for the ocean long ago. But the richness of their heart was to find gratitude. Another very important lesson, I asked you to remember this, is that Varuna thought of service to Hanumanji, but he could not render it. So he inspired another personality, Menak, to do that. So this is the example of the Acharyas. They know what is pleasing to Bhagavan, but sometimes due to circumstance they cannot do. So they inspire by their example someone else to do. Nice lessons, huh? So Hanuman responds, and his response is very instructive too. He says, and I am very pleased. That was the first thing he said to Menak. You have offered me hospitality. Please let go of any unhappiness that I'm not spending time on your peak. I have received your words even though I cannot accept your hospitality. I'm in a rush. The time when I finish my task before nightfall is arriving. I have to carry out my vow. I've made a promise to Lord Ram and to Sugriv, which means I cannot stop my task as I made a vow. And saying this, Hanuman gently touched the mountain with his hand, and with a smile went up higher in the sky. So just that little contact with Hanuman made the sea and the mountain happy. Why? Because Hanuman was carrying bhakti for Lord Ram within his heart. And that's why just a little, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That's why just a little contact with a devotee can give us such great happiness. Because they're carrying bhakti for the Lord in their heart. And the Lord is Satchidananda. The lesson Hanuman taught us is that to receive someone's offering is very important. Hanuman did not reject Menka's offering because he expressed his pleasure at her intention. So if someone offers us something out of their heart, and due to circumstance we cannot accept it, at least we should express our pleasure towards that attempt. Krishna himself demonstrated that with Vidura's wife, right? Vidura's wife offered him a banana peel, and Krishna accepted, just to demonstrate the principle of hospitality. This is what's called in Nectar of Instruction, Priti Lakshana, right? And in Ramayana it says, Hanuman expressed Priti Lakshana. 6 loving exchanges, for those of you that haven't read Upadeshamrita. So this seeming obstacle is in the mode of sattva guna, right? The sea god and Menak don't have any evil intent. But what we're taught by Hanuman to discern is that what looks favorable may not be favorable on the path of bhakti. So as practicing devotees, we need to determine what is favorable or unfavorable in order to know what to accept or reject. The only way you can know that is through Shastra. Ultimately, Shastra is our guidance. Because complacency can set in such a manner that it diminishes our devotional intensity, right? That could have happened to Hanuman. Okay, let me take a breather. Let's relax a little bit, enjoy some roots and fruit coming out of this mountain. I'll spend 5 minutes, no problem. So a very big lesson is Hanuman overcame 2 obstacles in this one instance. The physical obstacle of flying over an ocean, but also overcame the obstacle of thinking of his own comfort rather than the service that was required. I will try to do the next obstacle. I don't think I'll be able to do 4. There were 4. Manak, Surasa, Simika, and Lankani. I'll try to do Surasa next. So Manak was an obstacle in the mode of sattva. So sometimes obstacles come in the path of very nice people, very, very nice devotees. Why? Because the devatas want to test how well are we progressing. Is this person worthy of becoming a better servant of Shri Ram, Shri Lord Krishna? So in Ramayana, in Sundarkand, in chapter 1, verse 147, I just spoke to you from verse 1 through 145. So from 147 on, then it says, Ramayana says, then the gods, the siddhas, the perfected beings, and the great sadhus approached Surasa. Now, notice the name, Surasa. And she was actually Nagapatni. She was the mother of Nagas. And Ramayana says she was glowing like the sun god. And the Devatas approached her and said, this glorious son of Vayu called Hanuman is crossing the ocean. Obstruct him for some time by assuming a hideous form of a demon, gigantic as a mountain, fearful with yellowish brown eyes. I think it's the yellow part, not the brown eyes. With big teeth and a wide mouth like the sky. So why do you think that Devatas are inspiring her to do that? One is to test him, but what's the other reason? Anybody? Why are devotees sometimes good people, good devotees? Why are they put into this difficulty sometimes? To test their dedication, yes. That's what they specifically want to see that. That's very good. Another reason? To intensify their surrender. Another reason? Yes, to demonstrate their glory to the world. Prepare for the future problems? Yes, instruction. Yes, all correct. Very good. That's what all the reasons you gave are the reasons that the Acharyas give as well. They say specifically, we want to assess his strength, his valor, his courage, and his intelligence. Once again, we wish to know whether he will win or give away to despair. Meaning, will Hanuman give up when an obstacle comes in his service? Because Hanuman could just complain and say, hey, why are you doing this? I'm trying to serve Lord Ram. You're Lord Ram's ministers. Why are you creating this obstacle for me, bringing up another person in my path? So honored by the Devatas, Surasa assumes a terrific, gruesome form, frightening to everybody. And she came up in front of Hanuman and spoke to him and said, "Oh, great Vanara, great monkey, the Lord of the universe has provided you as food for me. I will eat you. Enter my mouth." The glorious Hanuman, Ramayana calls him glorious. Ramayana says actually Shriman. What does Shriman mean? One who's blessed by Shri to overcome difficulty. So Shriman Hanuman said, with a blooming face and folded hands, Dashrath's son, Ram, accompanied by his brother Lakshman and his wife, he called his wife Bahedi, Sita Devi, entered Dandaka forest. So soon as he encounters a difficulty, what does he do? He starts reciting Ramayana. So the instruction is, for us, if any difficulty occurs, go to Ram Katha. So he continues, he says, while Ram was engaged, otherwise his glorious wife Sita was abducted by Ravana because of a deep-rooted enmity between the demons and Lord Ram. I'm going as Lord Ram's emissary to search for his wife. It is proper for you to render help since you are a resident of his kingdom. So that's what he's saying to Surasa. Hanuman's saying, Surasa, you should also help because you're residing in the ocean which Lord Ram's ancestors created. And he's the maintainer of this kingdom. Hanuman continues and says, I make a vow that once I've delivered Sita Devi to Lord Ram, then I will come and enter your mouth and you can eat me. So Acharyas point out that Hanuman cares for his life only as a vehicle for service. Once the service is done, he promises he will come back, and he keeps his vow. Having heard Hanuman, Surasa, who could take any form, told him no one can cross her, as she has been given a boon by Lord Brahma. And she saw that Hanuman's trying to pass by. And in order to, because the Devatas said you have to gauge his strength, his valor, and his intelligence. So to gauge his strength, she said, you must pass through my mouth today. Such is the boon granted to me by Brahma in the past. Then she opened her mouth big and stood before him. Hanuman said, okay, open your mouth wide enough to hold me. And then he became 10 yojanas. Seeing his body stretched to 10 yojanas, what did she do? She became 20 yojanas. What did Hanuman do? He became 30 yojanas. And Surasa, what did she do? She became 40 yojanas. Then what did Hanuman do? He became 50 yojanas. Then what did Surasa do? Became 60 yojanas. Then he became 70 yojanas. What did Jishu do? This is a pretty simple math, right? Became 80 yojanas. And then he became 90. And he looked like a mountain, Ramayana said, in the middle of an ocean. Remember, the Devatas didn't just want to know his physical strength, but his intelligence. So what did Hanuman do? He quickly became the size of a thumb. Because what happens when you open your mouth really wide? What happens? Your eyes close. So Surasa's eyes, when she became 100 yojanas, closed. And in that instant, Hanumanji became the size of a thumb, went in and came out. And he said, "Oh Dakshani," because she's the daughter of Daksha as well. "I have indeed entered your mouth, and your boon has become true. What Lord Brahma told you, you're done. Allow me to proceed in my quest for Sita Devi, my obeisance unto you." So at that point, Surasa assumed her true form as Nagamata and said, "O noble monkey, Vanara, please proceed happily to achieve your purpose." And she said this because Hanuman was very gentle with her. And Hanuman understood that she's an elevated personality. And she said, "Go and unite with Sita Devi, and with the noble self, bring her to Raghav." So the Devatas then, seeing this, blessed Hanuman. The lessons from this pastime, and we'll stop at that point. So right? Some people have a lot of competency, but they just can't get anything done. So they wanted to see Hanuman's character and how competent he was. So Surasa, Su means in Sanskrit, it's an accentuator, right? Surasa, rasa is taste. So very attractive distraction that the demigods put on the path of Hanuman. So Hanuman grew bigger to meet the challenge, but the challenge grew bigger. So the lesson here is, in fighting an obstacle, one can expend so much energy that in the mode of passion, that one loses sight of the goal. in trying to overcome an obstacle, if we're in the mode of passion, we can lose sight of what is our actual goal. So how did Hanuman address this? He addressed this by becoming small. And figuratively, becoming small means to become humble. Humility is the way to address challenges. The bigger Surasa Hanuman became tiny in size, but the Acharyas say not in capacity. Because he does not want to take on a mode of passion desire to meet the challenge. He did not meet the challenge in a competitive mood. He met it in a mode of humility. He was not trying to demonstrate his strength in this challenge. Rather, he was trying to move towards his goal, free of being the doer. So that's lesson 1. When coming up with obstacles, become small, become humble. Remember, you're an instrument of the Lord, not the doer. The Devatas, so point 2, the Devatas wanted to assess Hanuman's strength. Well, meaning, will Hanuman just use his brute force, or will he use intelligence to get over an obstacle? Because the Devatas, remember, want to assess our capability. How dedicated are we in our progress in spiritual life? Because they bestowed the material favors that remove obstacles for Krishna's purpose. So they're a test for our authenticity. How authentic are we? Krishna says, Devi asa gunamai. What's another name for Maya Devi, Durga Devi? You know, the same Durga Devi that moves people away when sees that a person is moving towards Bhagwan will change the jiva's disposition. So that's point 2. That's the purpose of the Devatas for us as well. Point 3 is, although Surasa is challenging Hanuman, he maintained a mode of goodness as displayed by his smiling face at the end. And so the idea here is that mode of goodness is a residing place for intelligence. Krishna says this in chapter 2. It's buddhi is present in the mode of intelligence, not in the mode of passion or mode of ignorance. Point 4, under all circumstances in our life, Ram Katha, Krishna Katha, helps us refocus on what is the goal and how to meet challenges at all times.